Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we try to figure out how to build and run a SaaS. I'm Benedikt.
And I'm Brian. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we work on our products and keep the lights on with consulting. Today is September 17th, and I am feeling inspired.
This is episode number 9, and I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with work.
Okay. Do you want to?
You're inspired. That sounds way more fun than being overwhelmed.
I had an amazing day yesterday, but I've also just had a pretty good week. Yesterday in particular was just it just was. I was firing on all cylinders. I got off to an early start, which I always love. I like when I'm able to wake up in the morning early and just get going.
Mm-hmm.
I really like early mornings. And so just, yeah, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful morning in Boulder, Colorado, just sitting out on my in my backyard, finishing up. I was reading Shape Up by Ryan Singer. And it's just so nice. And then what did I do? I went for a swim at the gym. Been getting back into swimming a little bit. That's just super relaxing. And then knocked out some client work that was like high impact. My anchor client has like a really important summit, going on. So that just felt like immediate, and he was thrilled. It was like, yeah, it's like it just felt good. And then this is a silly thing, but I was talking last week about going to the batting cage. It was either last week or the week before, whatever.
Yeah, it was last week, I think.
Okay. So the other thing I went and got is it's called a rebounder. So if anyone's ever played like lacrosse or baseball, just imagine it's like a 6 foot by 6 foot frame with like this really like tight net in it. And so depending, you throw the baseball at it and it like rebounds it right back to you. So if you don't, so you can just like play catch. Or you can angle it back and like throw as hard as you can, and it sends these, big pop flies up. Or you angle it, vertical or like a little bit tilted down, throw it really hard, and it'll send a grounder back to you. And so I just like spent all this time in my backyard just like reliving my baseball days. It was so great. It was so great. But then knocked out some more client work in the afternoon. Tidied up some things, and finally rounded out the day with working on these wood cut or like linoleum cut prints that I'm working on for my wife's upcoming birthday. It was just a very inspiring day, from top to bottom. Like if I could just relive that day over and over, I'd be pretty pleased. So I'm coming in today with my cup is full. And
That's nice.
I'm feeling good, man.
Are you a morning person?
I am.
Have you ever were you always a morning person, or did that change over time?
I feel like from early 20s on, I've noticed, yeah, I really like early mornings. Like when we were living in Dallas, there was this group of guys that we would regularly meet up for breakfast at 6 a.m., to talk about a book or some article or something. And it just feels, I don't know, there's just something that feels so good about getting going on a conversation before the sun is even up. There's just like, yeah, today's going to be a good day. So I've always enjoyed the mornings. What about you? Are you a morning person? Are you a night owl?
I'm not a morning person.
No?
That's for sure. No, not at all.
Nice.
Like I like to sleep in. Like I like to sleep overall. Like sleeping is nice. And it usually takes a while until I get going in the mornings.
Yeah.
Like it's like getting up early and then getting into work right away. Tried that a couple of times. Doesn't really work for me. I don't get anything done.
Yeah. No, this is there's a natural segue here into my other podcast called Bright and Early, which so I knew I wanted it to be for early stage startups, and I was doing the NPR thing, where I was just like looking around for phrases that had the word early in it, and when I saw bright and early, I was like, yes, I love things that are bright and early. So jumped on jumped on that. So
Yeah,
what's
like,
got you sorry, man, what's got you feeling overwhelmed?
well, like last Wednesday, the day after we recorded, like it was one of those days where I had so many small to dos that I basically spent all day doing tiny tasks that took, I don't know, 30 minutes max, but like a lot of them and all in different contexts. So I kept
Yeah,
switching between
that's
stuff. And it was a horrible day overall.
oh, man.
And it hasn't been a lot better. Like, for some reason, there's a lot of small stuff coming into my email inbox recently.
Hmm,
And that's just a bit overwhelming. Like, just the sheer amount of small stuff that takes my attention that I need to take care of. That's yeah, it's a bit annoying.
mhm. What do you have a preferred way of dealing with those small things? Like, let them stack up until they're 6 hours worth, and then you just set that time aside, or do you prefer to say, "Ugh, okay, let's just knock this out so that it's off out of my head?"
Usually, I try to knock that out as fast as I can, so just to have it gone and away and
Right.
done. But like some of that, like I have this one client that's basically on a support contract, and they, for some reason, they just keep on sending small issues recently.
Okay.
And like one of the problems there was I tried to fix it in a, like just like go in there, fix it, push it, be done with it. But then I afterwards I realized I didn't spend enough time on it. Of course, I only fixed half of it, and then there came another
Mhm.
email.
Mhm.
So I feel like in a way I made it worse for myself by not by by not spending a proper, I don't know, an hour or so on it and just trying to knock it out as fast as I can. Um, but yeah, that's been a challenge this week. I also started working on a new consulting project. I think I mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
Got a new
Yeah.
client,
You did mention.
and that's super exciting, like super fun project. But like basically spent all of yesterday working on that project and didn't get anything else done. So all the new small tasks from yesterday I had to do today, and yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's a little bit crazy this
Yeah.
week.
Well, and so you were saying that some of those small tasks coming in are on a support contract. And so
Hmm.
it's not even like you kind of need to be responsive on that. It's not the sort of thing that you can let stack up to, okay, half day's work I'm setting aside for this client. Like you have to be
Yeah,
fairly responsive.
I want to like I think most of the stuff probably isn't that critical. But then again, I mean, it's definitely an issue, and I kind of want to get to it as quick as I can. But
Yeah.
maybe I should slow down a bit and try to get more into batches and then work on them for like, as I
Yeah.
said, half a day or so.
Right.
It's probably a better approach than quickly looking at it, fixing only half of it without realizing, and
Well,
then like having to do it all over again the next day.
yeah.
So
The
yeah,
the trade-off there then is their assessment of customers, like your customer service. You know, how yeah,
yeah.
you respond super quickly, they're ecstatic because you're always so responsive. On your side, if you always respond super quickly, then, "Oh, yeah, like, I got sidetracked from this thing to do a 30-minute task," that then yeah, it's the
Yeah, but like I
balance,
mean, then
man.
again, I tell them it's fixed, and then they test it, and it isn't
Well,
fully
okay, well,
fixed. And
that's
it's
yeah,
also like this.
that's a 3rd issue.
Uh, it's also not the best experience for them, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, it's man, it's it's tough. Hey, how did the office hours thing go? I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, like that was an interesting experience. Like a lot of people seem to like the idea.
Great.
Like you as well. I mean, you said it was a nice idea. Got a lot of comments about, hey, that's cool, that's smart. But when we started office hours, there was like one guy,
Okay.
and that's it.
That's
So,
oh, man. Well, listen, dude, I okay, we gotta do some brainstorming on this. The reason I didn't sign up is I was like, I I'm not going they're gonna have plenty of people signing up. I'll do a future one. Um, That's
Yeah.
I mean, I was not entirely kidding on the show, and I was like, I'll be there. I ended up not doing it because I felt like, there are probably people who need that time a little bit more than more than me, and I get to talk to Benedikt every week. Um,
Yeah, maybe everyone
that
was like that.
that's real okay. That's really surprising, huh? Well, so what are you thinking? Are you gonna give it another go?
We're giving it another go in October, like
Okay,
I think early October, October 10th or something like that.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure like what we did wrong there. Like we announced it a couple days early. We set a
Mm-hmm.
topic so it would be easier for people to, I don't know, decide if it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but then nobody showed up. But I mean, who knows? Maybe I mean it's a live event, so we're asking people for a slot in their calendar. That might be a
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
And maybe the topic wasn't the right one. I mean, we said like the topic this time was like user tracking.
Yeah.
Maybe people don't have any questions about that.
Yeah.
But
Are
then again,
you
I feel
Go
like,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, are y'all trying to keep it in the orbit of what user list does for your customers? Or are you open to the idea of, hey, look, we've got a development, design, and customer, expert here on the team. Are you running a SaaS? Ask us anything about that. Or are y'all trying
Yeah.
to kind of keep it within the domain of user list?
I guess for this first one, we tried to keep it in the domain, but I'm wondering if it's like worth just opening it up, like ask any question and we'll try to come up with a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the end, it was so like we didn't really talk about user tracking at all in that call. Like
Okay.
the guy who showed up didn't have questions about that, so we talked about his plans and his projects.
Okay.
Um, so I guess yeah, maybe the next time we don't set a topic or explicitly ask for questions about anything related to our expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then we see.
Yeah. Well, I hope that y'all don't get too discouraged that the first one did not have as many people show up as you expected. I think it's a great idea. I genuinely bet that a number of people either either had a different topic in mind or did what I did, which
Yeah,
was
who knows?
I'm gonna leave my spot to somebody else this time around. I'm gonna be a little bit more selfish next time, I think. Well, cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
October, you said. Keep us posted. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Great.
we'll definitely announce it once it's closer to the date. But I let me just check. It's userlist.io/office-hours,
Okay.
and there's the new date, and it's October 10th, 11 a.m. EST.
All right. Well, you heard it. You heard it here, folks. Get signed up. Hey, you've been a guest on a couple podcasts recently too.
Yeah, that was one of the like small tasks last week was scheduling recording dates and showing up for recordings. It's a lot of fun. I think those episodes are still to be released,
Okay.
but yeah, I'll definitely tweet about it once they are.
Cool.
Um, but I feel like I should stop doing so many podcasts now. Otherwise, like I feel like I'm starting to annoy people when they show up in all their like in all the podcasts I listen
No.
to. Oh, it's this
No.
guy again.
Man, I feel like we got to have we need to ask Justin Jackson for a guest spot on here because he's someone I've like heard talk about on the marketing side. I feel this sometimes too. The feeling that you have of, oh gosh, I don't want to like keep annoying people or keep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um and there's something where you have to say something 7 or 8 times before somebody even remembers it. um or we need somebody on the marketing side to like set us straight on that
Yeah.
and convince us, no, you're not,
Yeah, I mean,
it's called
I mean,
exposure.
it's I think one of the problems or worries I have isn't so much of like being on a lot of podcasts, but like being on a lot of podcasts at the same time.
Yeah.
kind of gets
No, I
that's
think that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
Like I feel like at some point people will just stop listening to those episodes because
Hmm,
like, oh, I already listened to that guy like yesterday on this other podcast, and
interesting. Yeah.
maybe they are probably still telling the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so yeah.
yeah. I listen, I understand the sentiment. I'm curious what listeners think. I mean, that's like the whole way that somebody, when they release a book, they like do the big speaking tour and they show up everywhere. I mean, there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, I mean that's what you do, I guess.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I mean, no surprise there. That's exactly why we're doing it. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
um, just like be out there and talk about user, or not necessarily talk about user list, but mention it at least
Right.
in a
Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
places,
Be out there,
and
be
just hope it
everywhere
sticks.
so that
Yeah,
people end up, "Oh, I keep seeing this. I keep seeing this user list. What's this about?"
yeah.
Yeah. What else from your week?
I guess that's the important stuff. I also started writing a new guest post for the Ruby Magic blog, where I've been writing guest posts for the last couple of months. That hopefully comes out soonish. I think next week or so.
Cool.
And I've been working on a talk for the upcoming Ruby meetup in Frankfurt, Germany. But as I said, like a lot of small stuff going on, and that's basically taking up all my time.
Gotcha.
So what about
Gotcha.
you? I listened to that Rob Fitzpatrick interview. Was
Yeah.
it today or yesterday? I think it was yesterday, and
Okay.
that was a really good one. I
Oh,
should
good.
really read that book.
Thanks. Yeah. No, it is a good book. Um, so let's see.
That's the mom test
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
anyone
yeah.
who's
We
wondering.
should say that Rob Fitzpatrick, the mom test. Um, and it's all of it's an approach to doing customer interviews. I think the tagline is, how to get people to how to understand if your business is a good idea when everybody's lying to you. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's a well established, like it's a well known thing, that there are bad ways to do customer interviews. The if anybody listening is nodding their head along to Rob Fitzpatrick, you should also read Lean Customer Development by Cindy Alvarez. That's one that I had come across many years ago and have been following that process, and there's a whole lot of overlap. Um, but anyway, what was funny is we recorded on Tuesday. We released on last Thursday, but I mentioned Tuesday that I had a couple of other interviews lined up to talk about the like this idea I've got of remote work doesn't have to be lonely. And so it was great to be, have Rob lined up as a guest,
Yeah.
that Friday to talk to him about the very thing I'm like in the middle of. And um it was, yeah, it's good. So I think I've done a total of 6 interviews now. And so clear patterns that I'm hearing. This and all 6 people have been managers. They've had direct reports.
Hmm.
I think that one person had 6, one person had 13, one person had like 30 something direct reports. So, a decent range at least. And so it's definitely important. The idea of employee happiness, employee wellness, it's important, or they've expressed that it's important. And then when I follow up with, well, what are you paying for right now to address this? Basically, they
Hmm.
are all paying for tools, and like got a good list of tools, some that I had heard of and some that I had never heard of. But they are definitely spending money to do this. Um, that's frankly, that's not a very that did not come as like new information or a surprise to me. Just the industry of employee engagement and employee performance, like well established, like $1 billion industry. But that the people in my potential target market with my people, yes, they are spending money on these things. It definitely seems to be more likely that a remote employee is going to feel isolated or just not feel a part of the team if a large percentage of the team is at headquarters, and a
Mm.
smaller percentage are distributed remote employees. Um, Definitely, I mean, it sure seems it seems like right now, um, remote employees are less likely to express the feeling of, yeah, they don't get me, they don't care about me, if the entire team is remote.
Mm.
Um, and one thing that one of the managers I talked to, because they do have a lot of people who are co-located at a headquarters and then have some remote employees, is that anytime there's an all hands, anytime there is a meeting, everybody is on Zoom. So you don't have six people in a conference room sitting together, and then like up on the big screen you have the one or two remote employees. Like that makes them feel different. It's that if anybody is remote, then we are all sitting at our laptop. So, like,
Mhm.
that kind of reinforces that, or that's just a really they've done a great job of addressing this problem that a lot of people are expressing. Um, so where was I going with all that? That yes, okay. So those are the patterns that are emerging. There are definitely some best practices that people are sharing. Um, what is not, I think, what is not clear at this point is, okay, there's an obvious solution as well. That's a product solution. I think that there's
Yeah.
definitely somebody wants to be like a remote coach and go around helping teams implement these best practices and help their remote employees feel like they're a part of a team. There's a business there. I don't want to run it. If you if you want to host and facilitate, um, company summits, retreats for remote teams, because they should be doing these once or twice a year, which is what everybody is
Mhm.
saying. If you want to be that person and run that little boutique company, I think that that exists as well. I don't want to run it. What I'm starting to dig into now is, okay, getting back in touch with some of those folks and getting a little bit more detail on, are there pieces of this that are continuing to fail you, and that sort of thing. But that's where it stands right now.
Mhm. So, sounds like a lot of this is a people problem that's not easily solvable by software.
Well, that's right. That's right. Which is, and so let me, where the way I'm still kind of forming this and thinking through it is, there are a ton of people problems that the software doesn't can't solve. What it can do is monitor and inform. And so
Mhm.
that's, if there, I think that you'd be crazy to try to think that you're going to build some sort of piece of software that is going to keep people from ever feeling lonely, or if they, pardon me, or if they do feel isolated, that the software is going to fix that. It's not. The goal would
Yeah.
be like a bunch of culture and engagement tools, is to monitor and inform. And
Mm.
so, if I were to start, sketching out some thoughts and prototyping something, it would be around that idea: a tool for managers to monitor and keep them informed of, either how are we implementing these best practices, or how are our employees experiencing our implementation of it, and
Mhm.
here are some things that we need to do better, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Sounds a little bit like you're also more focusing on um hybrid teams with like remote people and co-located people. Is that
Yes,
right? Because
that
like last week, I had the impression that you were like you were acknowledging that those groups exist, but you don't want to focus on it. And now this week, it
yeah.
sounds like
But
it's probably the better idea.
yes, because that's where the pain is most pronounced. Um,
Mm.
and I got some theories on that as well. But it definitely seems like the people who are most likely to experience it are in companies where that it feels like there are different classes of employees.
Mm.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. My first thought was nope. remote a remote tool for a remote first team, and it turns out that the pain is much more significant in uh in companies that began co-located and now are incorporating remote
Mm.
remote hiring for all of the benefits that it has, but it was an afterthought.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I feel like there's the saying that if one person is remote, the entire company is a remote company.
mhm,
But I feel like that's probably a learning process for the companies, because
yeah,
it
right,
like a lot of things change that aren't that obvious. Like, for example, as you said, like having calls not in a or meetings not in a meeting room with just one person
yep,
on the screen and everyone else in the room together, but like having everyone on a remote call and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah, the
But
truth that
yeah,
I've heard that phrase, and like the truth of it is probably if you have one remote employee, you should act like a remote company, not that
mm,
you are one. I mean, you should think
yeah,
like you are one. And so yeah, I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
you're that's a good observation.
yeah. But I guess that's the hard part. I mean, like, there's no software can ever solve that part of like changing the behavior of people. Like,
No.
they will, like, if they still like what software cannot prevent them going into the meeting room and calling this one person.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So and you're all like, it sounds like you're mostly looking to like build a monitoring tool or
Well,
like a
by
feedback
yeah,
tool or
so
something like that.
wait, sorry. I talked over you. What was that?
Like a feedback collection service or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wanna when I say monitoring, I
Yeah,
don't
it
mean
sounds very
like
like
yeah, right.
Big
I
Brother
don't
like.
I do not mean eavesdropping or like,
Yeah.
anything behind, but yeah, an automated check-ins, and feedback collection specifically around, best practices for remote teams.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the so then the question is the pain significant enough that um, the tools that they're currently using um, would they rather add to their suite of tools or replace one that they're unhappy with this? So
Mm.
I want to do some more. I guess yeah, that's the state that I'm at. At some point you have to uh, get busy building something, and ideally don't build more than you should.
Yeah.
But it does not feel like yeah, this nobody wants this, nobody needs this. I It feels clear to me that this is an existing problem that companies are facing right now, and I think it's very true that more companies will face it in the future. Um, now, uh, is there, given the current suite of tools available, is there room in that market to offer something new, or is the market growing fast enough and large enough that actually, yeah, there's actually room for just another offering?
Mm.
Just because there are some current tools doesn't mean I shouldn't build one. Like, yeah, okay, it means that there's a
Sure.
market
Yeah.
there, and I'll come into it with a point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you already have like something more concrete in mind, or is it like just like something that collects feedback and keeps tabs on, like, not
I
literally, but
No, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't
uh,
have any. I don't have any. I don't have any sketches or any code written whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, in my head, what's the first set of things would be a Slack bot that asks a short number of questions that would go through a decision tree that would potentially end up at a suggestion either to the employee or to the manager based
mhm.
upon the responses. Then collected back at a web application that displays the results of those surveys in a UI. Um, that's like
Yeah,
as concrete
that's
as it has
one
gotten.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one idea. If this were to be a product, that might be where you would want to start. If it were to be a consulting company, like that feels super obvious what you would do there and what your content would even be. On the product side, I'm gonna start. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna start working out some sketches and getting that in front of some people.
Hmm. What do you feel like is your target audience for this? Especially, I feel like I feel like this isn't really a problem for like smaller teams, like where you're like a handful of people. You probably don't need a tool like this. Like,
I think that's true.
what do you think is what do you think is the baseline in terms of employees or something like that, where it makes sense to use something like a tool like this?
One of the people I talked to said that at their current team, this is not a problem because there's only 5 of them, four or five. Um, but he said, at my previous team, we could definitely have used something like this. Once we grew to 15 people, it just started to feel like not everybody knew each other. And so, 15 what plus, you know, some
Yeah.
range within 15 to 25 or something, is where it begins to feel like the employees who were there at 3 and 4 start to lament the good old days, in
Hmm.
lots of different ways. Like that's just a very common story. And so I would I guess I would my first hypothesis that I would want to test on this would be, um, yeah, a team of 25 with a headquarters where there's like 15 to 20 people at the headquarters and 5 to
Hmm.
10 remote employees. That feels like, ooh, yeah, they're probably feeling this pain. Um, that's uh based on what I know right now, that's where I would start, and where I would be interested in. Like, I think I think definitely, larger companies of, 200 to 500 employees, um, which is not even a big company to me. That's giant, but relative to what a big company really
Yeah.
is, even
Yeah.
that's a small number. But um, yeah, so something like in the 20 to 200 employee range feels like where
Hmm.
my first area of interest and focus and likely match, um, is probably there.
Yeah. Sounds like this was also a size where they probably have money to spend on something like this.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a smart choice.
Important, yes, importantly, large enough to outgrow the free option.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so
Interesting.
I guess I'll say I don't have a specific idea in mind as to what I'll talk about, um, like what my exact next steps would be. I really am still trying to feel out. Okay, Brian, is it time to start sketching? Or is there some additional validation to be done? Um, I feel like the next bit of validation is to start pulling together some possible solutions and trying to invalidate or validate those
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
I'm processing it out loud, literally with you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so okay,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
the pain is pretty obvious there.
yeah,
As I said, it's probably hard to come up with a good, like, there's probably not a tool that could solve it,
fix
but
it.
like at
Yeah,
least help surfacing it or
yeah, yeah.
preventing it in a way that you like have some early warning signs or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you learn
Yeah,
anything else
so
like
on I
from?
guess on that, like I want to I'm where how I'm kind of thinking through it is New Relic doesn't keep you from deploying code
Mm,
that will bust things. It lets you know when you do.
yeah. Yeah.
And so that I think that would be my parallel approach. How's that land?
Yeah, like insights for teams or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Um, did you learn anything anything interesting during the conversation in terms of best practices, how companies try to solve those problems right now, like not software wise, but like or maybe also software wise, but like best practices wise, like behavior wise? Is there
Yeah.
anything, any interesting
Yeah.
patterns you noticed?
Well, I mean, I had many of them I had heard in response from on comments of that initial tweet that I sent that got that traction. People were saying, this is not a problem for us because we do, X, Y, and Z. And so, so if anybody wants to go back and look at it, like I tried to list all of them out, that I had heard on that thread as they were coming in. The new one that I thought was pretty fascinating is the one that I did mention, which is just make sure everybody's on the same playing field and with video conferences. Um, pull up I've got a Trello board with all of this in it. Company retreats is one that practically everybody mentioned. Um, so much stuff just around the communications culture, and that is also kind of more of a um, the way that it's communicated and enforced is not what's the right word here? It's like a process, having certain rules in Slack, having certain expectations. Like if you want somebody, if something's time sensitive, it goes in this channel. If it's not, and this is the default, that you're never expected to get back to respond in real time on Slack. Within 12 to 24 hours, then those are our processes and understandings. Like those are the things that people tended to communicate. It's like these are our processes on how we communicate. Um, and so, well, yeah, I guess related to that is some people had some interesting onboarding processes where
Mm-hmm.
a new hire is never onboarded alone. They hire in cohorts. And so this cohort of 3 new hires, even if they're in different departments, are their first day is the same day, and so they go through, a 2-week onboarding process with company processes, not just like, here's your laptop, but here is how we use Slack. Here is how we use Zoom. There's a water cooler channel in Zoom where you can always dip in and just talk to people about nothing. Like those sorts of processes I thought were pretty fascinating. So people are figuring out ways to solve for this. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's fascinating to me.
Also feels like there are a lot of like content marketing opportunities there. Like just having a website with all those processes written down and outlined, that would
Yeah.
already be super useful. Maybe
Yeah.
even like organized by stage of the company. Like you can
Mhm.
start doing this when you're like 5 people, or you should stop doing this when you're more than
That's
15 and then continue to something else. Like that would be useful, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That is a really good point. I'm gonna jot that down.
Yeah, maybe you should. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm
now I'm talking you into stuff
but
again.
no, I'm
Um,
not going to I'm not gonna start doing content marketing before I have
before you have an idea what you want to
yeah,
do.
$500 in MRR at least. Yeah. We'll see.
Okay, okay.
We'll see. All right. What else, man? Anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to?
You mentioned that you finished reading Shape Up. Like, how
Yeah.
long did it take you to read it?
4 good sessions. Um,
Okay.
and so a buddy of mine who runs a design agency here in Boulder reached out to me a little while ago and was like, "Hey, I've been wanting to read this." I was like, "Me too." He said, "Okay, let's just put 2 dates on the calendar and we'll like mini book club this." And so yeah, it's a total of like 4 sit down sessions. Then it's in PDF. I wish I could send it to my Kindle or like, to try to print it out. It's like a couple hundred pages, or that's not true, 140 something pages. So I just read it in preview on my Mac, which allows you to highlight and annotate and add notes. It's not the best experience
Mm-hmm.
in the world, but given the options, that's how I chose to read it. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know. It's a really good read. It reads very easy. They have practical examples. It's fascinating. I'd recommend it.
I have a feeling I should try to read it until next week or the week after, and maybe we can talk about it, because I feel like it's like, I mean, you read it, you know the inside, but like from the outside, it looks like a really useful book, and I could probably use a learning or two from that.
Yeah.
So maybe I just like prioritize it a bit more, and we can talk about it in an upcoming episode.
Yeah, I would love to. I reached out to Ryan Singer. He's going to be a guest on Bright and Early. We haven't scheduled it yet, but
nice.
I'll get a chance to talk to him about it on that podcast. So maybe we can talk about it beforehand too, and I can bring any questions to him that you have.
Yeah. I should probably read it very fast then.
Yeah.
You're really on fire on with the podcast and like the other podcast, and especially on Twitter. Like, I feel like every day there's at least one insightful thread by you in my Twitter feed.
Well, thanks for saying that. I was thinking about this too, just as far as something about podcasting right now, and it's been around for a decade. But podcasting right now reminds me of how it felt when, like, in the mid 90s and late 90s, where like you could just people just had weird and random websites, you know. And now it feels like to be able to have a podcast is like get $100 worth of recording material, and get an interesting topic and start sharing and thinking about it. And what has definitely felt true now that, like, I'm still only a several months in, is that it does feel like it's a really great creative outlet, where topics start to get tied together, ideas. Hey, Benedikt was talking about this. I just read about this over here. And I talked to this, this lady, 2 months ago about the same topic. And I don't know, it feels really good. Start creating things and ideas start to connect, and it just all builds momentum and becomes greater than the sum. So if anybody out there is thinking about starting a podcast, you should. It's fun.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it's definitely fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about this week?
No, not for me. I don't have any specific next steps to take other than to sit down and decide what my specific next step is. So I'll report on that.
Sounds good. Then let's wrap it for this week, I guess.
Let's wrap it.
Then show notes, slowandsteadypodcast.com.
Yep. And Twitter at slowsteadypod. Let us know what you think. Tell us what to do.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Good talking to you.
Yeah, indeed. See you next week.